Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to the channel with some more Blood and Plunder coverage. We're moving along with our scenario reviews here and taking a look at the raid scenario, which is an interesting one. So here, the little background bit, the defender is protecting a stockpile of supplies or valuables. The attacker must drive them off to capture the vessel or secure the loot, whichever, depending on which way we're playing. Again, land, amphibious, and naval, or ship, or sea, however we want to define that. So anyway, land setup here to start with for you guys. So the entire board is land terrain, but no specific terrain setup is required for that. So, customize to your heart's content there. Deployment, though, the defending player chooses one board quadrant or quarter. The attacker will deploy within 6 of the opposite edge, so we'll see that in just a second. Before any units are placed, the defender places one objective marker, basically loot of some sort, within their deployment zone. The attacker then places another objective marker in the defendant's deployment zone. The two markers must be at least 10 apart. Neither can be within 4 of a board edge as well, and neither can basically be impassable terrain in and of themselves. So typical 6-turn game length here, and here we kind of see what they mean with the deployment zone. I think they're assuming here 3x3. But again, just scale things appropriately for your actual table size that you're playing. So the actual objectives here. So the defender gains a strike point if the attacker has a unit that is not shaken within 4 of any objective marker, and the defender has no units that are within, or that are also not shaken within 4 of the same marker. So really have like a potential 8-inch distance, or diameter is what I'm trying to the word I'm looking for, around these objectives, right? Because you can be up to 4 away from it, and so can the defender. So really, if you're as far distant as you both could be, it'd be essentially an 8-inch distance there. So which is a fair bit of space. Let's be honest here, because there's two objectives, right? That's a fair bit of space on the board, and both of those are in the defender's zone. So if possible, it'd be good for the defender to try and get it so that you can ideally have like one unit sort of occupying space in between there, where you're potentially within 4 of both objectives with one unit, just to make things a little bit tougher for the attackers there. On the other hand, the attacker gains a strike point if they have no units within 4 of an objective marker at the end of turn 3 or later. So again, one thing I love with these scenarios in Blood and Plunder, which is maybe worth considering adopting in some other games too, is it really does force the attacker to attack, essentially. Now you could potentially survive taking that strike point if you don't get there, but really that's a pretty hefty gamble there. But it really, again, just incentivizes and forces this idea that the attacker needs to go up there and actually attack and try and get to these objectives. So overall, a fun little scenario. Again, somewhat similar in part to the breakthrough one, in that the attacker is really trying to get to a certain spot on the table here. Now they're not just trying to reach a certain territory for the sake of reaching it, like with breakthrough, but again, you're trying to get to that loot. Now, interestingly, it'd be fun if there was some sort of mechanic for a unit to pick up the loot and then get away from the defender zone. I feel like that would be pretty cool, but that's not in the scenario itself here. So that is the land version of that. We'll take a look at the amphibious and sea versions in just a second. Alrighty guys, we're back. We're taking a look at the amphibious setup here, so fairly similar, although with some adjustments, of course. So here, one side of the board must have a landmass that takes up about 25 to 50% of the board area and doesn't extend past the center line. Again, we'll see the diagram here. And again, adjustments will be made for the size of the board you're playing on. The rest of the board is basically navigable water. Players determine if there's any water terrain features like shoals, etc. That will help define parts of the shoreline. And then scenario rules again. The attackers, or the attacking force, must have models on the land portion of the board at the end of turn 3 or later, or they gain a strike point. So that's just part of the scenario. Deployment here. Defending player chooses one board quadrant again, containing a land mass. The attacker basically deploys ships on the other side, so they're essentially affecting a shore landing here. The defending forces ships must begin sailing to windward. Before any units are placed, the defender places one objective Marker, again, representing loot within their deployment zone, and the attacker places another in their zone. And again, here, though, must be at least 10 inches apart and not within 6 of a board edge, and neither basically in impassable or deep water. So determine the wind direction randomly before any ships are placed. The attacker ships must be placed so part of the ship is within 2 of the board edge. Again, 6 turns here. And taking a look at the map here, so we see the attackers basically spread out on 2 table sides here, and then the defender has basically a 2-foot box to deploy in. So the defender's deployment zone includes a landmass that takes up at least 25 to 50% of the table. And does not extend past the center line. So that's a bit confusing here just because that is your defender zone, but really the terrain piece, if it's going to take up 50% of the table, is going to extend past into that neutral area here too, but again, not impassable terrain or deep water. So objectives here still, the defender gains a strike point if the attacker has a unit that's not shaken within 4, and sort of the opposite end of that again, and the defender has no units that are shaken within 4, and then the attacker gains a strike point if they have no units within 4 of an objective marker at the end of turn 3 or later. So again, the impetus is on getting there, getting to those objectives. Within turn or by the end of turn 3. And again, here, just to satisfy that, you just have to get there. You don't have to actually be claiming it, essentially. So that takes care of the amphibious version. And again, the attacker will be affecting the shore landing. Then on the sea side here, so the whole board is deep water. And with any other water terrain, basically up to players' their choice. Defender picks a board edge, sets up ship so a part of the ship is within 2 of the edge, and then the defending forces ships must begin sailing to windward. The attacker sets up at least 24 away from the defender, and there's another 6 turn one here, and here a little bit different again because we're not dealing with land masses essentially. Here we see the defender's deployment zone, and it said basically sailing to windward for them. Attackers basically 24 away. So objectives now are certainly different. The defender gains a strike point if the attacker captures the defending flagship by the end of turn 6. So basically by the end of the game. And then the attacker gains a strike point if the defender's flagship has not been captured. So basically it's a capture the ship essentially. So you want to do everything you can to keep the attacker away from you, and then the attacker really is just trying to chase you down and take over your ship. So slight difference there from the ones involving land. But anyway, raid is a fun one. Again, basically, again, attacker, defender. The attacker is trying to get to certain points of the field, much like breakthrough. But again, here it's actual objective markers that are the object here. And again, defenders need to keep attackers away from those in 2 of the 3 versions here. And ultimately in the naval version, keep the attacker basically from capturing their flagship. So anything you can do to prolong the attacker getting there, and you just have to hold on basically until the end of the game and not get captured. So that is everything on the sea side. But yeah, it's a fun one here just to show or see, how well you do with basically holding 2 points, and then doing your best to basically keep the attackers away. So now the attacker has some easy things to satisfy as far or easier things, just getting there so that they don't get a strike point against themselves. But it's another thing entirely to be within 4 of the objective. Not be shaken yourself, but then also have essentially removed the defender from 4 inches of that, and essentially making sure that if they are within 4, that at least their units are shaken then, so that they can't essentially claim those objectives for you. So another fun scenario here in Blood and Plunder as we work our way through. Let us know if you guys have played Raid and which variant, and land, amphibious, or sea, and if you played with any other modifications like weather and other crazy things happening. So be happy to hear you guys' experiences there, also the factions involved and force size and all that, and composition. And stay tuned. We will have plenty more Blood and Plunder coverage. Thanks so much for hanging out, guys. We'll see you in the next one.